You have entered the realm of dead air. For the next 2 hours, you will be transported into the world of the strange and the supernatural. You might not feel the need to cleanse your laptops or mobile devices afterwards. But it might not be a bad idea.
Why does the fly get that name above all the other insects that are out there in the world? And everything else has some sort of a prefix, butterfly, dragonfly, but fly, the most annoying thing in the world, and they get top billing. Why? I don't understand that.
Well, it's just like Sting in the Police. He turned in to be a pain in the ass. So,
boom. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to
good.
Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. This is our Sunday night live show. We are simulcast on KGRADB.com, KGRA on Facebook. My name is George Lopez. With me, as always, Mr. Ken DaCosta, and thank you guys for joining us. Our top story tonight: a man was arrested for stealing from a supermarket while standing on the shoulders of 2 vampires. He was charged with shoplifting on 2 counts. So we'll move on from this on the show. We'll, our very special guest, Chris DiCesare, going to be joining us here in a few moments. But Ken, you had a very full day today, my friend. What is it that? Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
Yeah, try the veal.
What have you guys been doing all day long?
I was at a MUFON, Massachusetts meeting.
Nice.
And we were able to facilitate a live stream from Kathleen Martin. Now, if you don't know who that is, she is the niece of Benny and Barty Hill. And if you follow this show, you better know who they are, because along with Travis Walton, probably the most famous alien abduction in history.
Not only that, but the husband wound up being the voice for Darth Vader. So we got that going for us.
Yeah, she had something that she hated the movie.
What?
A lot of misinformation. It was the first thing I thought of was like The Legend of Lizzie Borden or something like that.
Yeah.
With Elizabeth Montgomery, who I love. Everybody loves Samantha.
Bewitched.
But a lot of salacious details. I don't mean in a sexual manner. I just mean a lot of. It's Hollywood. It was The Conjuring of 1971.
This film was based on a true story,
or not?
Not necessarily. It's based on an event, but not necessarily the true events of the story. We tend to go through, but so it was an interesting story. Then the things she told.
Yeah. Because a lot of us know the Benny and Barney Hill story, but there were details that, if you're sitting there, made you go, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that." She was actually, for the longest time, the one who possessed a lot of the articles attached to that, like Betty's dress that had the famous pink powder on it that was analyzed, and they said it didn't know what it was. And then the famous star map she drew of the Reticula galaxy that we did not know about until maybe a decade or more later, that it even existed. And so, some of our more powerful telescopes and our astronomers finally nailed it down. But she had drawn it from memory because she was shown it by her abductors.
Wow.
So some interesting stuff there. And so it was very enjoyable. And Kathleen has agreed to join us here on Dead Air. as her
What?
schedule allows down the road. Yeah, we're going to have Kathleen on. And she was so kind to, take time out of her Sunday and spend almost 2 hours with us answering questions. And I know that Eric Hartwig, American Road Warrior, he's in chat, kind of set this whole thing up.
What's
Got a
up?
hold of
Kudos.
everybody. And really lousy weekend up here in Rhode Island. Rained all day, and then suddenly the sun came out today, and everybody said, "Hey, good idea. Let's go to this UFO presentation." And so they just came like like a revival tent. They just came out to it. So good crowd today. Good eats. Nancy, Marilyn, and David, and Dave too. Great job putting all this together today. A lot of fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it's nice to get out and rub elbows and socialize, and that's where we wind up meeting different people too. And besides Kathleen Martin, I can't say, guys, I apologize, but this is the importance of hitting that subscribe button and the reminder bell. Is that I started an open dialogue with somebody that, well, let's just say you would know the name, you would know the event that it was connected to. There's been a motion picture and a documentary related to this individual, but I don't want to jinx myself. I don't want a situation where I let everybody know this person could be coming on, and then things happen in life, right, Ken? We've talked about that just recently, with some people who say yes, and then nothing happens from it. It's just something that unfortunately transpires. Life happens, and people do other things, or they have plans that kind of conflict with coming on our show. I can't think of one right now that would be as important as us, but that's okay.
We'll
anyway,
tease that too, because when you told me about the distinct possibility,
yes,
that for all intents and purposes, she has
confirmed
that she would like to join us. You guys are going to be blown away
yes,
with this, because there is a movie. I watched a bit of it last night.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
About
her story.
Situation in this woman's life. And boy, I'm excited of the prospect of having her on to talk about this situation.
Yeah.
Hey, Christy, how are you, Christy?
And I know, a lot of people are going to speculate. And, if I was listening to this, I'd say, is it the woman that actually went through the event that became the movie The Entity? And it's not. I would love that situation too. And you never know what we can achieve here on the show. We'll keep going. But we have achieved success tonight, Ken, also because we have a very good friend, as this show is listed as Unplugged. By Ken's conception, this is something that is going to involve all of you also in chat. Questions that you may have for all of us, topics that you may wish to get into, you guys can certainly put it into the chat. We'll put that little blue star on it, and we'll go down one by one on the different topics. But Ken, let's not let our guests wait any further. Let's bring him on, one of our family.
Let's not. It's been a while since we've seen him, but he's joined us here. Get that spotlight off of me. He's joined us here before.
Humble.
He's known as the Ghost Boy of Geneseo. He is known for surviving an extreme haunting. He is known for what is called the C2D1 haunting. It's not from Star Wars. I'm not talking about the robot or anything like that. So, but he is a great friend, one of my favorite people involved with anything to do with the paranormal. And I thought that he would be a great choice when we decided to just sort of ad hoc the show tonight. So, and he's a teacher, which means automatically smarter than we are.
I hate that.
But anyway, let's bring on Chris DiCesare, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up, Teach?
Hello. Remind me of Arlene Francis. Are you known for your work in motion pictures? Are you known for your work back in the 1960s. So, yes.
Yeah. Remember, raise your hand if you have a question in the audience. That's all. When you're talking
Right.
to the
That's
teacher.
that's all it is.
Chris, how you
I
been?
got-
What you been up to, buddy? Everything okay?
Everything is good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I signed they spell it out to an NDA. That's something, I guess, basketball. Who knows? Where I can't say too much about certain things, but we're filming right now, in the middle of filming for a documentary miniseries about those things that Ken just mentioned about the haunting and what happened at Geneseo back those
Oh, you prick!
30
We tell you everything. You can't tell us now.
years ago.
Nobody's watching, Chris. It's just us.
Well, you say that, and then I get the call saying, "All right, now we're all in trouble." But it's I'm excited about it. You're going to see it advertised all over in the summertime, and it should be something that you won't forget. Creative teams make some good work. I enjoyed a show called Vatican Girl on Netflix. It was pretty good, I thought. And there's a show called Don't Blank with Cats, and that was pretty cool. And these are the people
I love that.
They're working on my documentary miniseries about what's going on.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
Is
so
it what, the same production company?
allegedly.
Ooh.
Wow.
For
okay.
this streaming service that is not Hulu. So that's all I can really say. But
Well, by
really-
the time
project,
it
the
comes out,
project,
it's
the
either going to be
Voldemort project, those who shall not be named.
right. Well,
But-
I'm super honored. I'm super honored by this. It's I sometimes you swim with the current. You're fortunate. Sometimes you go against the current, and it seems like usually we're going against the current, trying to work through things. Hey, Shelly, but in this case, the current kind of found me and pulled me along, and I'm just very gratified that people found some value in my experience and my friends and what they did. And so I suppose outside of my marriage, my wedding, and having the birth of my 2 children, this is probably the biggest event I'll ever experience. And so I'm trying to stay level, not too high, not too low, and enjoy it. That's the goal.
Well, and because Chris understands we're sort of like the mob here,
Yes.
he has unwittingly promised to come back on to promote this project when it hits the screens. So I know
we'll give him
I'm
an
talking
offer
to-
he can't refuse, right? There we
Yeah,
go.
no, well, I was talking to him a little bit about this, and I'm aware of it, and it's just so I also understand, as these things go, that there's not hey, codes. There's not a lot you can talk about because of
This is so nice. You see, this the love.
NDE is that near death experiences. Oh, the other one, NDAs. Okay.
Yeah. So how far do those NDAs go? Like I can't actually say what's happening, but I can imply it. Is that what it is?
I think
I
they
don't
can
know.
take your children. I'm not.
Let's get
positive.
Cody. Let's get Cody back on here. He's on TV. He'll be able to tell us.
In that case, yeah. Well,
Yeah, but by the time it airs, there'll only be 2 streaming services left, and that will be Netflix and HBO Max Discovery Travel Channel, which is now all combining together. So
then we're still okay. Okay.
You're still going to be out there. That's for damn sure.
We're still okay.
But
Yeah.
man, my scroll is going to suck. I'm going to run out of battery time. You're just going all the way down to see what's available. But
I think I can let your audience know what's going on without telling them. So I have this thing I'm working on. This is the author proof of the book, and you can see in the corner it's obscured. That is that word you really can't make it out. It's like hieroglyphic Egyptian kind of thing. So I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Okay.
But I think maybe it's a rune from the Celtic days, or perhaps I don't know. So
I think it says nut flux. I'm not absolutely sure.
Nut flux.
well,
Yeah.
that's a different film entirely. I auditioned for that.
So something that sounds eerily like nut flux. You're going to want to keep an eye on that for Chris. Are you? I don't know. Let's not get into it. I don't because.
Well, now I'm intrigued.
I'm going to start asking you for
left-handed.
clues now.
I'm an Aries. It's
Yeah. Oh God, let's not go down the sign pathway, please. We don't want to do that.
Will we?
Oh God.
Contestant number 1. Will we be seeing your face on this project?
I'm sorry to say yes. A whole lot of it. It is not. It's not based on a true story. It's a documentary. It's a documented miniseries, so you'll only see the people who are in there during those moments. Most of us a bit older and long in the tooth now, but it is not like the Conjuring movies. It's actually a documentary, which makes it very exciting because those aren't usually done.
Oh, okay.
Well, then,
All right.
anybody watching the show right now, or if you're watching it in the subsequent days after the show is live, make sure you do a screenshot of this right now and then find Chris on the internet, and he will sign and autograph that picture for you.
Why is this happening?
And if you get the screenshot, George and I will also sign it.
Yes.
Whether you want us to or not.
Now that's cool. That's
just to lower the value on the thing.
So anyway, so you guys are joining us tonight in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, again, hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the reminder bell now. Again, Unplugged tonight. And the reason why is because, well, we spoiled you. The last couple of weeks, we had some heavy hitters that, basically took over the show, and you didn't get the chance to enjoy the presence of myself or Ken for an extended period of time. So we wanted to spoil you tonight with our presence. So if there's anything that you guys, again, had to ask, or you can put it in the chat or have a comment or a topic you want us to discuss, we'll throw a couple in there ourselves as well.
We'll wait.
You're welcome to do so. And that's it. That's what we look at. So for you, it's Chris, I think I'll start with my first question with you is it difficult being a teacher, having the experiences you have, and are you restricted to talk topically with any of that, especially in today's society? Everybody's paranoid. Everybody's going to get offended. Do you have certain either self-restrictions or government restrictions about what you can say or not say in the field of teaching?
Yeah, I think each licensed teacher has to set the mood, the tone in their classroom, the parameters. The students I teach, generally speaking, are special education students who are working through emotional trauma, who are working through learning disabilities, working through less than ideal situations. And so sometimes the scenarios they have, the psychoses, will match or parallel what a person who went through a haunting will say about hearing voices, seeing things, not being aware of what reality actually is. How do you trust yourself? And so that does present for me a hurdle to have to clear very carefully. What I do, though, is the first day of school every year, I put on the sci-fi show. And I said,
I love it.
Dude, that's you on TV. My teacher is on TV, and that gives me instant credibility. No matter what I do, what I rest of the year, that dude's cool because he's on TV. He's in my room now. Because most of these students don't go beyond, say, Walmart for the vacation and things. They don't travel. Most don't have more than one parent, if one parent. And so the idea that they have a person on television in their classroom talking to them, they really enjoy that. And then I say to them, listen, I share this with you because we all have a past. We all have things that we need to think about and move beyond. Whatever happened to you in the past is just that. Today's a new day, a new page in your life journal. Start writing things you want to learn about, discuss about, and during the course of the year, we'll hit those things, and you make yourself a whole new chapter. And that's how I tend to approach that. I tell the parents as well. I said, this is just so you know, I have an odd background, but I love your kids. I'll do what I can to inspire them. A teacher can't make someone learn. All we can do is inspire them to want to learn. And so the idea here is, how do you inspire children to believe in themselves, to want to read and write and improve their thought process? And that's the goal.
The thing is, too, we know that television's a powerful medium, and it makes celebrities out of the best and the worst of us, really, when the story is told. But when you use it to your advantage like that, suddenly you show this was a compilation show called School Spirits that was on Sci-Fi back in the 40s sometime. And
post World War II, though.
I think yours was like the first episode of that.
One or two. You're right in the beginning.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you can show that to somebody, it's just kind of like, I'm Mr. DiCesare, and here's a little bit about me. And just the idea that you're part of a production and stuff like that, you know, it gives you that cred, and it gives those kids in an odd way. The idea is like, I'm kind of special because my teacher's been on television, you know, so it almost gives them that. And then it's just kind of like, if it was me after that's done and everybody's oohing and on, I'm like, crap, now I got to live up to this.
You know, perception is a huge thing for us. The lens we view life through is huge. And sometimes it requires that you adjust your lens to move forward, to save a relationship, to get out of debt, to beat an addiction. Whatever the case may be, sometimes the lens needs to be reset. And I use the same example because I think it's safe to use. I think it's relatively common. You take the Red Sox baseball team, who had success lately, but for a long time it didn't. You know, and let's say the Red Sox are playing the Yankees in a baseball game. Let's say the Red Sox win 3-2. Those are the facts. 3 runs Red Sox, 2 for the Yankees. Undisputed. The Red Sox fan will say that was a great game. We hit in the clutch. We made the pitches we had to double plays. The Yankees fan says it's a terrible game. What's Judge doing today? So people can see the same exact thing in front of them and have polar reactions to the same set of facts. And that's just a standard thing. And so every student comes into my room may view me differently as a teacher, as a male, as an adult, whatever the case may be. And so by showing them that school spirits episode, they can see me laughing, crying, hoping, praying. So in a way, although we're different visually perhaps, or in our experiences, inside we're not. We all have the same feelings. And so those are the things we have to talk about and finding commonality in an age where you have far left and far right, and distrust of science and adherence to science. And we're so split now as a nation, really, as a society. And years ago, you might have only had 7 or 8 TV channels, but you all watch the Fonz, for example, or you watch the same thing. There's something to bridge you together. Now with all different media out there and 1,000 channels, we just want to watch to reinforce our own viewpoints. We don't reach out. We don't compromise. We don't discuss other viewpoints. And I think that makes it tough for anybody, parent, friend, teacher, even talk show host, right, to get these questions answered in a safe way.
Yeah. All right. You know what? It's that kind of night. And we're waiting for the questions from chat. So chat room, let's get fired up here. Talk about
Wake it up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Wake up. Let's talk about that a little bit. I had a plan B where I was going to ask you something paranormally related, but we do live in an era right now where the networks, it's not like it used to be.
Right.
It is on the local news. Like, here's what happened today. Here are the details, the who, what, when, where, and why, because they've only got a half an hour to tell you. But we live in a world now with 24/7 cable news. You've always got to generate something.
Yes.
That, to me, we live in a very opinion-driven society now. And it's not just who, what, where, why, when. I'm going to tell you all of those things. But now I'm going to have 6 experts come in and fill this whole screen up to give what we think as you being our demographic.
Right.
And then this is how echo chambers are formed, where you just get one perspective because this is our audience. But the most insidious thing to me is this notion that we all know you're busy and you've got full lives and everything. So don't worry about that pesky little thing called thinking. We're going to do that for you.
Right.
We're just going to talk at you and throw all this stuff. And unfortunately, yeah, it becomes an echo chamber because it's sort of like growing up listening to radio. If I was listening to radio back when I was an adolescent, I could hear Led Zeppelin, James Brown, Merle Haggard, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, all on the same radio station.
Right.
But then somebody says, well, I think this sucks. So now FM comes along. Now, if you only want to listen to country music, or if you only want to listen to rap, or if you only want to listen to rock and roll, that's provided for you.
Well, Ken, is comfortable, but comfort doesn't lead to growth. Ask any athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can never get comfortable when you are in essentially a results-driven profession.
Right.
It's success or move along.
And there should be a blend, don't you think? There should be a balance of most things in life. So you should be able to work hard, achieve things, and then have some comfort in your life too, right? But if you live only for comfort, then you may not achieve much, right? And then
Yeah.
it's hard to point the finger and say, why is this happening to me, when you yourself. And I'm not trying to sound judgmental. There are many people out there who, in spite of their effort, don't make the changes they want to make. That's a reality, but it's different than not trying to make a change. And again, as a teacher, you're always hoping that the student can invest themselves in the process of their own emotional and academic growth. That's a great thing to see. And because our students, most of them didn't make it, didn't survive in a general ed situation, when they graduate, you cry, you laugh, because for the last so many years you've been with them, seeing them going from self-doubt and sometimes self-loathing to standing on that platform with their tassel in front of their face and the degree in their hand, themselves not understanding, wow, this is really happening, and what others take for granted for them becomes the greatest day of their life.
Wow.
I
I
think
mean,
it's-
go ahead, George.
No, I think it's incredibly special. And, in the same area of topic we're talking about the divisiveness of our world right now, I applaud you for having the wherewithal, number one, Chris, that when these students first come to you and you put on the programming, there is no fear attached to that from your perspective. In that there could be parents out there who are going to be very, very protective of their children, especially those with special needs, and may be very faith-based and not want their children exposed to this. So he's got enough to worry about. Now you're putting ghosts in his life, and that has not been the case, which makes me feel good.
Almost never. On occasion, a parent might feel that way. Then I'll talk with them, and I'll ask them what makes them uncomfortable, so I can go through that, and then I'll express how it's important for your child to understand their feelings and why they feel that way. And so by me being brave and sharing mine, it allows them to be brave as well. And I said, stay in contact with me. Keep your faith and keep your values, and watch as the year goes by to see how they do in the classroom. And once they start getting from a C to a B and they're learning to an A, then the parent realizes, okay, you know what? It's high risk, high reward. I get you. Thank you. You invested in my child. You invested in me by talking with me rather than saying, well, too bad.
And that's the point right there, is that it's giving it a chance. And too many people shut concepts, ideas down because they're so narrow-minded on their own experiences in life and not realizing. And you were just talking about how we went from 3 channels to 3,000 channels is a demand, just a demand, supply and demand. You put it out there, people are watching it. If they weren't interested, if nobody was watching TV and every day they got up in the morning and spent the entire day outside, like we probably all did when we were kids, but not anymore, the supply wouldn't be there anymore. People would have to eventually close out those particular channels that people, but there's so much of it massively out there right now, and getting the right message, which is what you're providing to your students, accolades, just absolutely wonderful.
But you know what we still get? It's like with 3,000 channels, we hear the same thing we did in the 50s and 60s. There's nothing on.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
find
it's true.
anything on.
Yeah, 90% nonsense. 90%
It is.
nonsense.
You just can't find it anymore.
Yeah.
By the time you get the show, it's over.
Hey, it's hard to find the truth these days. It's like Bitcoin. You got to mine for it, you know?
Big time. Got a couple, I guess, questions already in the chat.
Hey,
there, Ken?
chat is awake. They're up and going. We've been starring these things. Let's get to them, George.
And Chris, feel free too. If you have any questions for Ken or for myself or for the channel, throw them out there as well, my friend. I mean, you're part of this circle of life right here.
The salon.
Yes, it is.
All right, hey, let's go to Ron. Let's see. Ron said, "Do you think we are more connected now or back in the 1960s?" A lot of levels to that, especially with social media now and
Yeah,
Twitter and
meaning
like,
meaning connected to each other.
yeah. Well, I I'll die on that hill too, because in many ways, the blessing and the curse is that connection. I think we are able to be because of social media, but I also think social media is going to be the bane of our existence at this point, because opinions are great, but they also are a gateway for disinformation, misinformation, hate, that used to hide under a rock. And I guess in a way, it's good to know, what good and evil is out there as they expose themselves. But I guess to me, in that humanistic kind of way, I have to think that even with all the turmoil of the 60s, which I have to laugh at sometimes when people, oh my God, it's like, listen, we've seen a lot of this before. The civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, the Watts riot. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and
Yeah.
on. So we've seen these kind of things before.
Yeah.
But there was, I think, a bit more of a sense of community and reaching out to people back then. And I don't really have anything more to say about it.
Well,
I think there was.
I tend to disagree only in the fact of, and I've said this about when we brought up as you went to the MUFON meeting this weekend. That, I think there's not a single solitary intelligent species or life out there that really would want to engage with us, looking upon our planet and what we do to each other. But this goes back millennium, and it just right around your neck of the woods, Salem witch trials. Here it is, community. And what are they doing? There's a snake oil salesman saying, witch, demon, this, that, let's burn them, let's burn them, let's burn them, with a particular agenda behind them. The Spanish Inquisition. I mean, you can go on and on about how societies still have their villainous, corrupt, within internal group, usually the ones of power, who are able to move and shake things within their community. It doesn't have to be more than 100 people, but when you're talking about 100 million, when you're talking about a billion, there's other outlets, other ways that they do it. It's the same song and dance. It's just on a higher level of volume of people and technology, as far as I'm concerned. Chris?
Yeah. Well, one of the ways I like to describe that is that, but we still study armies of fire ants attacking each other, and that's probably how we'll look. Chris?
Yeah, we're supposed to be evolved.
Well, I remember I was in the 60s as well. Communities helping each other put roofs on houses, 4-H clubs, Knights of Columbus, Doors of American Revolution, picnics, parades. I remember a lot of physical connections, a lot of physical discussions, physical helping. And my dad always said, you can't push a rope from behind. You got to pull it. You have to physically do something and be a leader. So although I am in contact online with thousands of people every week, which I couldn't have done years ago, my actual physical contact, my actual camaraderie is almost minimal. And so I think we're more connected, but in a less meaningful way. And that's, I think, a trend that many of us are feeling right now with the advent of, and we're talking about the 60s. So there were no computers back then. We had one phone in the house attached to the wall. We had separate things for our calendar was here, our bank. Now our cell phone is right here. So all of a sudden, our world goes from outside of us to in our palm of our hands. It's very convenient, but it's so limiting, And so whereas before you were kind of forced to, with a small f, negotiate and involve with other people and get some communication skills, now you don't have to just block someone who disagrees with you. You can change the way you look on your profile page. You can, in other words, so now we're kind of almost like pretending this is what I want to be, but we're not actually in many cases being what we want to be.
No, it's our avatars. All avatars now.
Right. Yeah, I always get the biggest kick out of people who say, well, this is my page and I say what I want to. I mean, it's all these pages are run by companies. There is nothing about social media in the Constitution, or I mean, I'm willing to look if you guys give me a minute, but I don't think there's any mention of it. But people look at social media now like this is my God-given right to have this page. You know, and if I want to put cats on it, I will. I miss cats at this point in life. I miss cat pictures because if the object of your day is to wake up and go, oh, it's 8 o'clock. It's time to see who I can piss off and who I can trigger and who can engage with me. That's the only saving grace, Chris. You're right. Is that feel free to scroll right by or delete. You know, I mean,
yeah, it's all about recognition, attention, and by whatever means necessary. It's just what we have to deal with and live in today. So, what do we got next on there, Ken? Question wise,
hey, we got Joe, and Joe wants to know what do you feel is one of the most misunderstood areas of the paranormal? Oh, Joe
Bigfoot.
wants to come on a paranormal show to talk about the paranormal. The nerve of that guy. Most misunderstood areas of the it's a great question.
Bigfoot.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think Bigfoot is. I think if there is the existence of Bigfoot first and foremost, kudos.
You know what?
If you guys got Wi-Fi up in the mountains,
I was
good.
watching an old Stephen Wright act the
great.
other day.
He's
like, I think I figured out Bigfoot. Bigfoot is actually blurry. Like the picture's fine, but Bigfoot himself is blurry.
Yeah, I mean the theories have gotten so wild that they are multidimensional and that they're connected to UFOs and they beam up before they get caught, and it just the extreme levels of trying to find justification why at this point in time a wild creature like a bear, that's what they compare these animals to, and they're not animals. I think they're very sentient beings. I think they're highly intelligent and highly evasive. I compared it to some soldier, SEAL team member who's, affluent in jungle warfare, and then you get your local hunter out there for the day. Who's gonna win that battle? But they just cap on more and more and more and more stuff to this, and I think they're most understood.
Sometimes I've given talks where I open up talking about Jeffrey Dahmer giving a Bigfoot talk, and everybody looks at me like this. It's like you got serial killers who live in huge metropolitan areas, but they have learned to assimilate and not draw attention to themselves.
Yeah.
And these are sentient beings. So if a primate can do the same thing and can reason and make themselves scarce and act with impunity amongst the rest of us apes, why not?
Yeah. Better idea than beaming up. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to stay in my lane. I don't like to speculate on things that I don't have much knowledge of. So my lane is the most misunderstood thing I experienced in the last 10, 12 years on these paranormal investigations, on these ghost hunts, as they call them quickly, is that people tend to believe that all ghosts are famous. In other words, right now there are 400 million Americans in this country, at least 400 million. You've got one president. And you go to ghost hunts and it's always going to be Cleopatra or Abraham Lincoln, or just there's this thought that, well, the ghost that I find will be famous, and that's noteworthy. The ghost that I interact with will be intelligent and want to talk with me. There's this lack of objectivity into the process of experiencing the paranormal.
I would venture to say, without really getting on a soapbox here, has been misunderstood about it has kind of been a learned thing. People have learned to be desensitized to the very idea that all of this attention that's focused on this is on the shoulders of the dead. And they weren't all serial killers and demons and sea captains and cruel people. They were family. They were mother, father, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, little children, and they all laughed and cried, and it displayed all these human characteristics. And as we pursue this, we have to remember they're not there for our entertainment pleasure, as we have made them, when people are running into walls and claiming they're possessed and all the rest of it. And that sticks in me so much. And I understand why. It's a generational thing. There are younger people who are doing this now, and their template was TV shows.
Right.
Where there wasn't as many when we were growing up, those of us who had an interest in it. There wasn't internet. There wasn't a ton of books. There were ghost stories, but, parapsychologists weren't writing books and how to ghost hunt and how to do this and how to run a paranormal team. It's all well and good, don't get me wrong, but I just think we've been desensitized to the idea of those who have passed on. I don't know if that answers that, Joe, if that's misunderstood. But to me it is, I guess.
All right, what do we got next?
I don't know. Facebook user, and it's a good time to remind everybody, if you're watching us on Facebook, if you want to take a couple of seconds, it usually says give StreamYard permission to see my name. Doesn't call it, you're not signing up for anything. Just click yes, and then, it'll show up here because we want to see who you are. But the question is, and this is directed right at Chris, do you feel it's easier to connect to your students because of what you experienced? And does it give you an advantage? Yeah, if you want to flesh that out a little bit, Chris.
Yeah. Let me preface that by just sharing with the audience that I didn't want what happened to me to happen. I wasn't looking for any interaction with the paranormal or anything like that at all. It just kind of happened to me, which on occasion life does happen to you. It was difficult for me to first accept that it was paranormal. I looked for other rationale, such as a gas leak in the room, drugs in my food, a practical joke, mass hysteria, hypnosis. And then after about a week or so, I'm thinking, geez, the one thing's left is what I'm comfortable with, which is the paranormal, because you can't really define that. There's very few tools to which to manage what that is. And about a month later, when I found myself on the bathroom floor, bleeding from my back, half unconscious, I remember thinking to myself, I can't do this. And I had been a nationally ranked distance runner. I was an A student. I had a good life. And it didn't matter how fast I was, how strong I was, how smart I was. This thing was controlling me, and it just ripped me apart. I didn't want to die. I wanted to keep on living. I didn't quite know how to live. And I survived those days because I had some good friends who I trusted, who helped me out, and because I observed my environment. And so that made me judge less and listen more. One of the things that I work with in some of my students is the concept of dyslexia, where the letters of the word are misarranged for your understanding. And so people say, what are you, stupid? You're not paying attention. Just stop fooling around. But the fact of the matter is they just don't see the words as we see them. They're just as intelligent as you or I are. They just can't express and convert that processing into their brain. And so as I lay on the floor of this bathroom, thinking about ready to die, I thought, I can't put my brain back together again piece by piece. And I know what it feels like now to not be able to express what I'm feeling and not know how to trust someone to express those things. So, yeah, I think by default, it wasn't my choice. My experience kind of forced me to, luckily, be a better listener and a more caring person. And I think that does help me, hopefully, knock on wood, be a better teacher for the students that I have.
With regards to your students, do you notice any of them on a certain part of the spectrum that may be gifted? That, I don't know how you would be able to recognize it as a teacher. You've got a curriculum, you've got to stay focused on that, and you're not really supposed to delve, but maybe there's something, either they're speaking and nobody's there, or they're looking and nobody's there. Anything that gave you indication presently or in the past that one of your students may have gifts along with the gifts that they already possess?
That's the third rail. That's the third rail.
Tell me.
When you have a student whom you think might have this gift, this ability, you love to see them develop that and explore that. But at the same time, they parallel
Restrictions,
what psychosis is and neurosis and things that they're seeing their therapist for. What I do is I don't ever pursue that topic directly. I'll say to the student, if you're ever going to talk to me, let me know. If you need my help, let me know, and let them come to me. When they do, on occasion, it happens usually once, twice a year, a student will approach me and say, Mr. D, I think there's a ghost in my house, or I think I'm seeing these things. I always tell them the same thing. Breathe and relax. You control this. It can't control you. I want you to write down things in a journal. Write down what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're thinking. Write down the dates, the time, the temperature, and look for patterns in what you're seeing and hearing. That'll help to inform us what's happening. And that it might be in relation to the medicine they're taking. Maybe the medicine is making them delusional. It could be something that is paranormal, but at least if they're recording what they're seeing and feeling, it gives them a tangible record of what's going on to look for these clues. I try not to encourage them to delve too deeply into it because I'm not there to guide them. I can't be in their house at night. They're doing their homework saying, now look over there.
No, of course.
And because they put stock in my words simply because of, and it's probably not fair, I have been on TV a couple times. I'm very careful what I do say. But on rare occasion over the past 10, 15 years, once or twice, I've actually helped a student out in a pinch and took care of something for them. And I just expressed to them, listen, just stay comfortable, and just be honest, and we'll get through it this way. And I think for the most part, a student who is having an emotional disturbance, who wants the attention, will usually tell you, "Now I'm good now, thanks. I just feeling that way, and I want this." You would say, and then the rare case where someone is actually experiencing some kind of gift or ability, I just encourage them to do positive things with that. Make sure you get to sleep at night. Make sure you have friends you can rely on. Don't take unnecessary risks. Don't go to these places by yourself. Don't trespass on some property. And so just be cautious and be wise. And I'll often recommend them to people I know to help them, be it a psychic or a medium or something like that.
Well, the direction that you take, it's empowering and it's also de-escalating, and the two things that I think their entire field of paranormal study should take to heart, de-escalate and empower. Don't all of a sudden think that, I'm vulnerable and everything's going to come after me. You have every bit of power in that free will. But when you have a student in those conditions, I think that what you're doing there is just stellar, absolutely stellar, Chris.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And to me, Chris, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the show, get into it a little bit. Your particular case, you are like one of the ultimate people to me in knowing your story from front to back and reading the book. You were like the ultimate person who fell into a haunting. And what I mean by that, you mentioned you were a nationally ranked distance runner. Yep. You were at SUNY Geneseo to be a runner.
A nice
and I don't know, I don't think, you had any prior interest in this subject, but it came and found you, and you're like one of the ultimate people, the most like discerning, detached from this. There was nothing in the past that suggested, you had a predilection to this type of thing, which makes what happened to you, more terrifying.
It's interesting. If I can just bring back that real quick. My friend Jeff Unger, who lived next door to me in Erie Hall, C2D2, he had this flyer that stated that Ed and Lorraine Warren were going to be coming to the college to give a presentation. They were billed as demonologists. And I didn't want to go. I had these two young ladies I was with who were talking to, and they wanted to go dancing or something like that. So I was going to do that instead. And then he said the magic words, and he said, well, it's free. I'm like, well, if it's free. So I went to see them. I didn't know who they were. I knew Warren was accounting in upstate New York. He did. He knew about the Amityville Horror at that point in time and things like that. I had no clue. But I actually went to see these famed people who I respect, and for what they did in the field in terms of popularizing it. I went to see them because it was free. And when I was in that auditorium listening to them speak, I was having a hard time with it. Lorraine was saying this, she had this mantra that like attracts like. If you know science, like pulls a magnet, repel. I'm like, that is not true at all. And so they kept saying these things. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But as they went along and they played these, they called them EVPs, these sounds. I thought, well, that doesn't sound like it should be that sound. It's a little off, like ooh. And then they had these slides, these black and white slides of these supposed spirits, and I thought, well, that does look a little weird. I mean, it could be Photoshop, and I realized, kind of like Star Wars or Star Trek, it might not be real, but it's kind of interesting. And then by the time we got to the end of their presentation, I thought, well, now that I think about it, when you look at a high school, cafeteria table, people usually stick with their life. So I get scientifically it makes no sense, but maybe into the spirit it does make sense. So for me, it was this constant march toward trying to understand what the heck was going on, and then to find myself thrown into the middle of this epic, horrific haunting a week later was just ridiculous.
Yeah, to give people an idea of how this is one of the better documented cases involving Chris. To give you an idea how well, I mean,
Oh, geez.
we have some things that have been written. We have different things. The film Please Talk With Me. And this is the DVD. I would strongly suggest anyone out there, and we'll see if we can grab it and we'll talk about it where they can get these things. But if you want to see an organic haunting, an extreme haunting, something that just came out of nowhere to someone who, like I said, wasn't predisposed to it. And when a haunting finds you, because we talk about the lifestyle you lead attracts negativity and all these different theories. We talked about them a lot. We talked a lot about them last week, George, with Bishop Long.
Yeah.
But when you're living a good life, a healthy life, and nonetheless, these things find you anyway, it's a fascinating story. So we'll let you know at some point how you can learn more about it.
There we go. All right, next question. We got 5 minutes left before we go to break.
I think we're at 5.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good one. I think this comes from Bill, but I didn't write this. It's all in caps, so Bill is angry.
Yeah, of course.
Chris, due to the point, this looks like a Facebook feed. It's like angry, and then Chris, due to the points that Ken is bringing up, thank you. Right now, 10 minutes ago. How difficult is it to teach your students to be objective, analyze evidence, and separate truth from fiction?
Wow, that's a spectacular question. It's one that I think most teachers worry about on a regular basis. True objectivity is very difficult to achieve. Hopefully, there's an understanding that the student has that there are typically 2 points of view, and there's usually an accepted point of view where the facts will lead you. I mean, we are still talking about the assassination of JFK some 40 years later about what was what. So sometimes the facts we have, we don't know if the preponderance evidence will remain that way 30 years later. I try to rely, though, on what I call first person or primary sources when I teach the students. So, for example, Diary of M. Frank is a first-person source. She was there, she experienced things, and her view might be limited to what she saw, but it's real, and it puts you in her shoes to experience what happened during the Holocaust. So, first-person or primary sources are the key for me to have my students understand what the people back then were thinking in that moment. And then we go from what they were thinking to why would they think that? And then I bring it to say, how would you feel about that today? And then what about today's world makes you feel that way? Because I can't have them learn 10,000 dates and then memorize 55,000 people history. It's just too much between global and U.S. and government class and economics. Can't do it. So the best thing I can do, I feel, as an educator, is develop their research skills, their problem-solving skills, and their ability to share their ideas with others. Because that way, I think they'll get the most well-rounded education. It's turned to giving them actual facts. Science has facts. Math have the equation of facts. History and English are more experiential. And the facts can change, and that's problematic. There are things on my walls, like the President of the United States posters on there. There's number 5, James Monroe. And you can see Grover Cleveland is there 2 times, things like that. But, you have 2 history teachers might teach different ways about the New Deal or about the war on terror under George W. Bush back in the early 2000s, So it's difficult to say factual data, but if I can give them the experience of being in a place, I think that helped. We did a workshop in my class, a workshop where we kind of role played about a diamond mine in South Africa. The canary goes in, there's gas in there and things like that, and how we went through things. And it was really a workshop about slavery. And I have predominantly minority students, mostly Hispanic and Black students. And in that scenario with the diamonds and the coal miners and the diamond workers and things, most of them decided it was okay to break a few eggs. A few people die in the process, that's okay. It's for the greater good. And then when I put it onto the slavery motif, they're like,
yeah.
Said, now understand something. Every person who lived in Nazi Germany wasn't a Nazi, it wasn't necessarily bad. Sometimes we allow things to happen around us, because if all of a sudden my neighbor's missing and their house is free, I can get the house for free, I'm happy. Their jobs we had, I'm happy. We, as people, sometimes we're ignorant, we put blinders on, we don't see what's causing things, just my needs are met. I said, keep in mind as you go through life, your needs are important, but you're part of a community, part of a whole. And the actions you take are ways far beyond what you do and say. You might even see them. So I try to make it kind of a holistic approach to that. So I hope the kids seem to like my classes. They do pretty well. And for most of the years in my district, I've had the highest passing rate in the regional state exams. So something seems to be working. But again, the student has to want to learn, and they have to want to challenge themselves. Some people, no student, don't want to do that. That's their right? And I can't own what I can't change. And so for the most part, I think I did answer that question okay?
Well, yeah.
You did good. I mean, because your students eventually, reading the Diary of Anne Frank, they're going to come to a point in their life where they're going to have to deal with people called Holocaust deniers.
Right.
So,
Right.
Buy the book. Buy the book, Diary of Anne Frank, for its banned.
I will say, as we got to go to break here, we're up against the clock, Chris. You're not only gifted, sir, but you are certainly a gift to your students and to this field. And we've got more coming on the other side of the break here, guys. Don't forget, again, hit that subscribe button. Stay with us. We got a 3-minute break. We'll be right back with you. You're watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you would like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy.
I'm taking for the play. I'm gonna take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to the second hour of our show. It is Unplugged Dead Air tonight. Chris DiCesare, our good friend, joining us also for your questions and topics that you would like to bring up. Now, as you see, I'm in the tropical shirt mode. I've got the air conditioning running. Summer has arrived here in Florida. It's hot, muggy, and miserable. It was raining today, too. But for the north, and the Northeast particularly, it's paranormal season. And we have got probably one of the greatest locations for you guys to get a chance to visit in the early parts of September. But now is the time to get your tickets. And Ken, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, let's get this up there. Ocean State Paracon 23. It returns to Harrisville. For the first time in 3 years, we're going back to where it all happened to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the release of the movie The Conjuring. And as you see some of our esteemed guests up there, many of whom have a direct tie to the house. The event is being sponsored by Jacqueline Nunez and the Conjuring House. So we are ever so grateful for her doing that. It's going to be an indoor-outdoor event at the Assembly Theater. If you've been before, you know how beautiful that place is.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things going on. Tours of the house will be conducted all weekend. On Saturday night, we're showing The Conjuring in the theater, hosted by Andrea Perrin. And on Sunday night, for those lucky ones, we are investigating the original farmhouse from 7 to midnight at the end of Ocean State Paracon. And some of our buddies here from the Dead Air Network, like Chris Rondina, Ron Murphy will be there. Of course, Cody and Satori will be there, Tim Weisberg, Carl and Keith Johnson. And you can't underestimate their significance because they were the first ones to investigate the house. They actually called the Warrens in. And we had another addition to the guests, and that is Michelle Roos will be joining us.
Hey!
And if you follow the show, you know about 3 weeks ago we had Michelle on. Phenomenal. What an accomplished woman she is in terms of this field. So she is going to fly in from Iowa, and she's going to join us as well. So September 9th and 10th, all the proceeds will benefit the Tomorrow Fund, who does phenomenal work supporting families who have a member that may be going through cancer. And they do things like, help them pay their bills, help them with the utilities. Some people lose their jobs because they have to care for a loved one.
Yeah.
So they support them financially during the hardest times of their life. So the 9th and 10th of September, and there probably will be, Erin, who plays a vital role in all of this, is back from Ohio. So, and we may be adding more guests to that because we got plenty of speaker spots.
Ken, I know it's only May at this point in time. Is there anywhere that people can get their tickets in advance?
You can go to riseupparanormal.com/paracon.htm. Everything will be there. Tickets are moving phenomenally. Vendors' tables are moving phenomenally. So if you'd like to come and be a part of that, we'll try to get that up there. And yeah, we got all sorts of hotels, Sarah, that we're working with right now as we get a little bit closer. But already in May, the response, as you can imagine, going back to Harrisville, absolutely phenomenal. So this is one you won't want to miss.
I'm so happy for you, Ken, and everyone involved that gets a chance to spend more time in the Conjuring house.
Give us now. You get more of a sigh, George. More. It's got to be a sigh of resignation, George.
Hey, Chris, did I ever tell you I wrote a book with Andrea Perrin?
Oh, she's a great lady.
And I've never been to the Conjuring house.
Sorry.
Ken now, actually, he has his mail forwarded to the Conjuring house now. He's there so friggin' often. Unbelievable. Anyway, guys, thank you and welcome back to the show again. Chris DiCesare joining us for your questions and topics that you want to bring up for tonight's show. And we have a few more in there right now, Ken, I believe, correct?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. This is your show tonight. So, Shelly Cooper, where are you, Shelly? Shelly's back up there. Do you think that the fakers are getting sifted out? Finally, to allow the belief system to grow among a lot of people to see this real and trust. And I'm sure she's just referring to the paranormal field in general.
Yeah.
I think people are getting more discerning as consumers in terms of what they watch. One of the things that bothered me, the yin and yang of paranormal shows, because they're cyclical, they get canceled, more come, and they're recycled. And the only thing is I always thought it gives people an unrealistic idea of what it is that we do, because I will get an email or a phone call asking for an investigation, and it's like, well, let's pump the brakes here. Like, tell me your story first. Let's before we take the step of going into your house and isolating you, and you can't watch TV and you got to keep the kids quiet. It's an intrusive process. So we need to get the details first. It's not just let's set up the cameras, let's do what you see on television. But I think people have gotten a little more discerning as they learn a little bit about it. Evidentially and emotionally, the way people respond to things. It's television. Let me sum it all up for you this way. They're selling Cadillacs and soap. And producers, for the most part, and we have heard this from high-level people who are on television, they don't care if it's real or not. Okay, they want you to watch. And say so they don't have skin in the paranormal fight. I'm talking about at the highest levels. When you find people that are interested in the subject matter, it's rare, but it's refreshing. People who are actually filmmakers who are invested in this type of thing. So, Shelley, as far as people who are faking things, I think it's like, and Chris can speak to this, as you become more educated in any field, you become more discerning, so I think that people who are faking stuff aren't as easily accepted unconditionally,
Chris?
Yeah, well, there are some folks who like to watch wrestling and some who watched Larry King back in the day. So different viewers, different people, different needs and likes. Neil Patrick Harris wasn't a doctor, Doogie Howser, and George Clooney wasn't a doctor in ER. They're actors. And so one of the realities of television and the movies and whatnot is that you're going to have actors pretending to be ghost hunters or pretending to do these things. And usually they'll put somewhere as a disclaimer for entertainment purposes only, just for entertainment, So it's tough when most of the noise, most of the attention is put on the actors and not so much the actual science or investigators who do the things on the ground, with the actual technology and the research. That's just the nature of the beast, I think. And I think a discerning viewer can understand the fact that what you're seeing on TV is staged, that it is rerouted again and again to get the proper tone, and that they do oftentimes create the evidence to get the sponsors. That's the reality of the beast. And I remember asking some people years ago when I first became known in some way, why are you doing that? Like, how come you're going to go there and just not do what's really happening? Well, they're responsible. McDonald's is not good for you all the time. People like McDonald's. It makes a buck. And if we can bring attention to the location, gets people there, it's kind of cool. The history of the location, some terminology out there, maybe some how-tos, what not to do's. I'm an actor. I'm entertaining people, and that's what I do. And that they were honest in that answer to me. It's kind of, once again, people don't talk about those things, but most people who see on TV, not all, are entertainers first. And then they're paranormal second. Most of them are magicians on the side, or most of them, have an acting career on the side. And this is the gig they have right now. And we're going to run with it. But most of the people that I know, who I meet at conventions, who I meet in the field, are people who are, I'm going to use the quote, like you and me. People have an interest in what lies beyond. People who would love to see something that could maybe prove this thing exists. Maybe some insight as to whether or not my mom or dad are okay up there. People just wondering about life. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, because the one thing we all share in common from being born is we're going to die. And so what happens then? So you talk about left, right, red, blue. In the end, we're going to have that one spot. We're all in that one spot. Boom. What happens then?
Except for Chris Fleming. He doesn't age.
No.
There's a picture on his wall. Dorian somebody. I don't know if you know that picture.
Dorian Gray?
Yeah.
We have our eye on Chris Fleming.
Keeping it going. I would love to have a shirt printed up and basically just get the copyright on FEPO. This should be all throughout the paranormal field for entertainment purposes only. And that is what we should be looking at with regards to the paranormal. Yes, it's performance art for what we do out there in the field. And yes, it's dramatized and the music's added and the cuts, the quick, sudden shock cuts to the commercial, and you come back and it's nothing. But you also have the other one that's out there. And this goes back to what we're talking about, supply and demand, when it comes to the different programming that's out there. Chris used the example of wrestling for people that, whether they know it's fake or they don't believe it's fake, they still watch it. Paranormal, same category. But when we get into these online investigators, the ones that are on multiple platforms, and you just know that they're doing theatrics, not doing an investigation, it's hard to be dismissive of them again when they've got 300, 400, 500,000, a million subscribers watching them doing exactly what the television shows are doing. So there is a market for it. We have in serious discussions here on the show. We're happy if we get 500 views in a week, sometimes on our channel. It should be 500,000 for the headway that we are making with a lot of different people in the field and saying, how can we improve this field? What is it that we can do on investigations to make it a more concrete evidence investigation? What are the do's and don'ts that we should be paying attention to out there? And none of that is really seriously addressed in the field. Let's get out there, pretend we're scratched, pretend we're pushed, pretend we're possessed, because we have a market, because that audience wants and expects that. They don't want us just sitting there and talking kindly to the spirits, even though we get results, concrete results. They don't want that. They want the scary side of it. So is it a necessary evil in this field? Yes, because there will be investigators that will go down that road for a while and then realize that, hey, I'm having experiences have nothing to do with my entertainment side. These experiences are legitimate. I need to start looking at this and maybe develop a great investigator out of it. So out of every 10 that want to go out there for likes and views, maybe there's one or two that become true hardcore investigators and advance this field. So I've always hoped for. That's all, just that little bit.
Well, a lot of it is what's called willful ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in the term that people are stupid, but there's a certain suspension of belief, whether it's wrestling or whether it's a Tom Cruise movie or whatever it is. And Thor doesn't exist in the physical realm. Everyone understands that, but they're willing to suspend that belief to be entertained for 2.5 hours. And that's perfectly fine. Wrestling is the same way. We know that there are predetermined results, but you have the stories and the backstories and the drama and everything. It's like, male-oriented soap operas, that kind of thing. So the paranormal things on television, it's the old story. Patrick Dempsey is not going to be my surgeon. And if he is, I'm kicking and screaming. I'm coming out of that. One of us is not walking out of that room. So it's no different here. I think people kind of suspend belief, and they have their favorites. Listen, that's just how it is. But as long as we can step back at 10,000 feet, and at the end of the day, be able to say, yeah, that was entertaining, and we'll just put it in that category, and so be it.
A best
That's
example
okay.
on that, Ken, of what you're talking about is you get on an airplane and you hear over the loudspeaker, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Sully. My co-pilot is Tom Hanks. Which one do you have the most faith in?"
Tell me what airline that is first.
So, all right. What's our next question out there?
All right, Sarah Yusuf, our friend Sarah, what is it about transitioning to adulthood that disconnects most people from the paranormal?
Good question.
A very good question.
Chris, perfect for you as a teacher.
Who's batting the lead off on this one?
All right, I'll lay the bunt down for you guys and steal second.
All right.
The simplest answer for me is time. When you were young, you can color in your coloring book, you can play a video game, you can, talk to your friends. Adulthood means you're paying bills, obligations, and work stresses, and moving and shaking and planning. And so I think just there's almost no time for most of us who are adults to pursue some of these things because once you see that shape near your closet, you have two choices: to investigate, to stay awake at 2:00 in the morning, to get your thermometer to what temperature is, get your camera out, get your K2 meter and start journaling things, or say, I get a meeting at 7 a.m. I have to be ready for, I better close my eyes and get to sleep. Yeah. I really think that practicality and the busyness of adult lives do tend to restrain our investment in the paranormal, except for an occasional weekend where you can go to some cool castle. But I really do think it's time.
Let me ask you a question, Chris. Let's take the far end of that timeline to retirees and seniors that get into their 80s, such as my father, their 90s. And there seems to be times where, you want to call it dementia, Alzheimer's. Yeah. Sometimes it's sundowners, like my father is susceptible to when he's in the hospital, such as he is now, that they see events. They see people in the pop. You're dreaming. You just woke up. That's not. No. Is it? Because now we're going back to all the time in the world. You got all the time in the world, day by day. Is there possible that reconnection happens at the end of our life also?
I think it's probably likely. And also if you think too about the way the mind works, by the time, if you are 90, most of the people will have already crossed over. So the chances of someone finding you as you are greater than, say, if you're 25 and most of your friends are, going at the bar, seeing a basketball game and getting hitched. So the greater likelihood that they will find you in that way. But also some people will take mushrooms, or they'll smoke pot, or they'll have a drink, or they'll create a mindset that relaxes them to better able, hear the voices in their head and maybe be more it's receptive to those things. And I think when people do have those, the aging brain syndrome, they have less control over what they can keep out. And I think that will also make you more susceptible to hearing and seeing things. And I know a handful of people, maybe 8, 9 people have told me before they passed, maybe a month or two before, they were seeing these things. And they didn't joke about it. They didn't even doubt themselves. And no, my grandma was here and she was right there talking. I saw her clear as day. And, and I know that people will say, well, it's just pure dementia. But here's the thing about that. Even if they're right, what a blessing the human mind can help ease the pain, can help make the transition a little safer, kinder, process that you can actually see things you love that give you comfort to meet that end. So to me, there's no negative response to that. They either are seeing this paranormal experience or their mind is giving a blessing to go out in a very positive, loving way.
Yeah. I can't really add to what you said, Chris, in regards to that transition and that separation between that adolescent brain and then all this responsibility dumped on top of you. It's an overburden, and you wonder yet in certain civilizations that are out there where, the entire village or the entire town pretty much all remains the same. A child at the age of 4, 5, and 6 is helping on the farm, taking care of things. They never lose that innocence as they grow older because it's something that's always been brought into their world, into their life, from a spiritual standpoint, whatever you may say. But from, the normal population that's out there, again, you're being hit with a barrage of different things every single day once you get into those teen years that just take away every last ounce of innocence that you may have had.
Oh, thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
Most authors of history, most artists, sculptors, philosophers were all people of means. They had time and money. Most people could not do that working in the fields and the factories. There's no mistake about that those that were sponsored, those that had, people support them and had wealth, those are the people who made the literature for the most part, with rare exception. And that, again, shows you what time can do.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to step away from the mundane and the boxes and push away the walls and think, what is that about? What does that actually mean?
And many times their visions were unearthly.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I think,
Ken?
there's a physical thing to it as well. I'm not really going to get into this deep, but there are things like vision, rods and cones in our eyes. And cones allow us to see in color. Rods are more scotopic vision, black and white. And, a child can see literally into frequencies that eventually erode over time before the cataracts come. So there's always that wonder if this has something to do with child see spirits. And I think it's a legitimate question, because, I'm just talking physiologically now, because this is why there's a lot of corner of the eye phenomena as we get older, because we don't see in color in our peripheral vision. We don't. So this is why I saw a shadow out of the corner of my eye. And this might explain some of those type of things, especially with kids, as the filters come. Like Chris has said, so adequately, the filters come. Eventually we don't have time for flights of fancy and things like it. I got to see over Ron's thing. See the top of George's head. Yeah. So I just think it's filters. A lot of it's self-imposed because life is complicated.
All right. What's our next question up there, sir?
Let's get to it. Sounds like Bill again. Bill's yelling at us in caps again. Supposed to write MAGA at the end with a
he types the way
exclamation point.
he talks very loudly. Okay.
Yes. Are you optimistic that there will be continued interest for genuine scientific research as tech advancement allows? Fair question. For me,
I'm not sure I understand that one.
I'll lead off this inning by saying Well, technological advances in the paranormal, spirit boxes,
Right.
SLS cameras. I think there's a place for those as long as we don't get too over reliant on them at the expense of our own experiences. Because at the end of the day, it's humans dealing with humans. We're here, they're there. So you have this human interaction, personalities, characters, stuff like that. I think the most underutilized tool in the paranormal is the human condition itself.
I've been called a tool many times. So it's,
I think that we underexplore our own responses to stimuli, the shadow figure, the feeling, the hair standing up on,
yeah.
we're not paying as much attention to the human condition as we are motherboards. So there's plenty of room in the paranormal field for technology to advance. A lot of it's the same thing with a different package. This one's blue, this one's red, this one's green. So as long as we don't overemphasize it or overutilize it at the expense of our own experience and our own senses and our own perception. So we're kind of on that precipice right now where, it's instant gratification. The spirit box said this, and then, you interpret that the way you want to. So, you gotta walk that fine line. Cody knows.
Yeah.
Start paying attention more. This is because he's dating Satori now. See, now what? Hang on.
Shh, Jason doesn't know.
Well, Cody was a tech guy all the way, but Satori has introduced him to, flowers and nature and crystals. So he's becoming a Renaissance man. Of sorts.
The love part, I'm not sure about the light, but definitely the love part.
That's okay. Cody, you do you, buddy. Attaboy. Evolve.
Chris, respond.
Well, I still have an iPhone 7, so I'm probably going to jaundice my response.
Good God.
Again, I'm going to go back to what I learned from my parents. And one of the things they advised me with it is that any tool is only as useful or good as the person who wields it, whether it be, a pen in your hand to write or EKG, device. I think back when I was in the college with Jeff during the haunting, he had a 35 millimeter Minolta camera, and he had a 24. Here we go. Oh my gosh! Oh, those years ago.
Look at those two kids, huh?
Baby, bye, bye, bye.
We had to give Jeff a shout out.
He's the best.
We're hearing this name, but he is very integral to this entire story. So
he had better fashion sense than I did.
Yeah.
And in any event, I think he had 6 exposures left on this 24 exposure strip of film. So we'd be very careful what we took and when we took it. Nowadays, people go on these investigations with their cell phone. They get like 97 images, like click, 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 click. We didn't have that opportunity, so we had to make sure everything mattered, that things were just as we needed to be. And so when I saw what I saw, I'd tell him, and he'd point and take the picture of that way. We didn't have what people have nowadays in terms of recording either. We had an old boom box, and we'd Maxell cassette tape, and we'd click and try to record those things. And yet, in spite of the lack of technology, because I think we were so focused on making it count, making it work for us to survive, we have some amazing photographic images and some amazing, what they call now EVPs. So I think technology, again, is very useful. I think it makes things easier for you and it makes things faster for you. But again, if you don't take the time to respect the technology and the subject matter you're dealing with, it's not going to make a difference. Right. And so it goes back to the old school thing: respect yourself, respect others. And then the tools you have will be lifted to a higher level of operation.
Exactly. You are watching Dead Air Live, our Sunday show. Unplugged tonight. We do this from time to time where we answer your questions or bring up your topics there in the chat. So, we've only got about a half hour left. There was something you guys were wanting to ask. Now's the time to put it in the chat for us.
I have to say, this has been the fastest show. That first hour was just kind of like Bill's chiming in 5 minutes, guys. And I'm like,
yeah, Yeah.
I thought Bill was missing time there or something for a minute. I don't
Yeah.
know what happened to him.
I want to point out one individual in chat, ERRT Radio, Ron. Last week, somebody new was in the chat while we had Bishop James Long and asked, "Who's George?" Who I was, and your response was, "He's Ken's lackey." Lackey. 10 years I've been running Dead Air.
Show
10
me that.
years.
I must have missed that.
Ken's lackey,
Ron,
Chris.
we're going to send Ron a T-shirt, though.
Oh, that's why. That's it. Next question.
Sarah used to begin. Any tips on how a person can build their support network?
Ooh.
Let's I don't know. Let's apply this to anything. Let's apply it to anything.
Yeah.
Boy, I think this is kind of where maybe social media is a positive, because there are lots of online groups that you can join without having to jump in your car and go meet somebody. I think that it's one of the things that when we do these conferences, and Chris was talking about it before, in its perfect form, it is like-minded people coming together to exchange ideas and principles and learn a little bit more about and from each other. And that applies to anything, whether it's religion, finance, politics. As long as the big thing is, as long as people are respecting the opinions of others. I think that's one of the positives of social media, as long as you're not, putting every tidbit out there for the public to disseminate and to tear apart and just defeat the purpose of what it is you're trying to do to, get some help or something like that. So, I mean, there's my 45-second opinion of it.
I would say the best way to get a support group is hit the subscribe button on the show, and you've seen the people.
See
in
what
the
he
chat.
did there?
Yeah, and they're really, I mean, highly intellectual. They're savvy in what it is that they're experiencing. Of course, all of their education and knowledge about the paranormal has been presented by Ken and Ken's lackey, but we try everything we can to keep
That's
everybody
not going
together,
away anytime soon, by the way.
When you when listen, I've never been a proponent for support when it comes to this field, but that's me. That's how I am. I put out what's out there and take it for what it is worth. It's not going to change my mind what you think in regards to it, but I understand that there are those out there that they work better in a group, a coalition of investigators, and as Ken just said, reaching out there and get the feel of people. These para conferences that are out there is a great way to start meeting people, because you see them in person. It's not somebody putting on their persona, or as we said earlier, their avatar on social media. They're right there in front of you. You even get to investigate with them a little bit and give an idea if there's some sort of rhythm that you build together. So there's variable ways that you can go about it, but subscribing is the best way.
Chris, that happened to you, really. Yeah. And Jeff, eventually you met people when you told your story,
right,
that wanted to listen.
Literally, first there was my roommate Paul, and then Jeff, and then Linda and Beth and Judy and Ed and Craig. And so, yeah, Father Charlie, it grew and grew. I wonder sometimes how that happened, because what I was saying wasn't comfortable, and the way I was behaving wasn't always rational.
Thank you.
But in looking back, I think that I was honest with people. I think that I was kind to them. And I think that I invested in their efforts for me. And so I think in any area, whether it's your coworker at work, as a paranormal group, or it's your relationship, I think if you can be honest, truly care about the person, and really give 100% to what you're working on together, that's your networking. because people love to be happy, they love to make progress, and they love to be appreciated. The worst thing is when one person takes a group over and it becomes like a dictatorship and do what they say and hear the 55 rules. People don't investigate to find rules, they want answers. And oftentimes rules, while practical, can restrain what you understand and what you're able to even discuss. So I would say in any area, please just be kind, be honest with people, and then try to give back that decency. And that worked for me in that moment. I'm very lucky, and I think it's a winning combination. Both of you, Ken and his lackey, both of you over the years have been George, have been very kind to me. Very kind. From the first time I met both of you years ago in Rhode Island, to our online conversations, to our emails. I didn't do anything for you. I show up, I smile, I shake hands, I go home. Fine. But you've always been kind, and I think you sense I do care about both of you. I respect both of you. I like being near you, and I think that helps build a relationship.
Yeah,
I think so. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for those words. That means a lot coming from you, Chris, because there are few people we respect more than you with that.
Thank you.
But I always thought it was kind of funny that people say, well, it's the paranormal, anything can happen. Here are the rules. Here are the theories. Here's what we can follow. But we just love to catalog things and, as humans, get everything in order. Well, here's an explanation. There is no explanation. Well, my work here is done.
48 rules. I'll not repeat them.
That's just kind of.
Here's Ken presenting the rules. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Don't trespass on private property. Never go on an investigation alone. Make sure you have a flashlight. Don't go in abandoned buildings. And for God's sakes, stay away from the Conjuring House.
At least I followed that
one. I've approved this message.
All right. We're getting silly time now. All right,
what are we talking about? Yeah. Hey, Dave Fritz wants to know if you were being haunted before you saw the Warrens.
Ooh.
Yeah, what was it? Okay, fair question. What was the timeline on what happened to you?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. Again, I wasn't looking for elements of a haunting. I didn't even know that was possible. I saw Ed and Lorraine Warren talk the day before her birthday. It was January 30th of 1985. And then February 11 or 10, about 2 weeks later, I began to hear this voice inside my college dorm room, just echoing by my ear, calling my name, Chris. I'm like, what the heck's that? And so, it's college. Kids are annoying. They play pranks. They get drunk. And so I was working on this term paper. It's like 20 pages long. So I'm come on in. Doors open. I'm in. Then crash. A little louder. I'm thinking, I said it's open. Just open the door. I'm busy. Got louder still. Crash. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I ran out there and no one. And the following evening, I began seeing this apparition in the corner of the room, and then the shadows and the breezes and the clock splashing and the temperature drops, and just it really spiraled and got out of control so quickly that it was hard for me to understand what was going on. And I say that because I was organized enough and responsible enough to dedicate myself to running every day to the national rank. I was in college, an A student. I wasn't as though I was just flipping about things. I didn't do drugs. I didn't fool around. And yet, in spite of all my attempts to have an organized, coherent game plan for my life, the whole thing blew up in my face. And as scary as that thing was to see, to look at, it was scary to think it was real, because that can't be real, because I know ghosts don't exist. It can't be real. And if it is real, what does that mean? What do I really know? Till. And I remember I ran out of that room screaming, oh my God, help me. I wasn't running from the ghost. I was running from fear of what the ghost meant.
And then, but you were lucky enough to find those people who listened to you, and you named them all before, and including your family. Because one of the worst things is if there is something legitimately frightening and unusual, because these things can be terrifying. We like, oh boy, I saw a ghost tonight. Woo! If you honestly, I don't care how many years you're doing this. If I saw an apparition of somebody in the room to my right now, I would fire myself against that wall. And I'm adult enough and man enough to admit it. You know, it's just, it's startling. Doesn't mean I run out of the room. Doesn't mean I burst into tears. Doesn't mean any of those things.
Well,
But
I
these
think it's a
things are
startle effect,
shocking.
right? You want to preserve your physical being. If you turn into some guy in a room you don't know in the middle of the night, you're going to be alarmed by that, no matter who.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural, healthy reaction because you want to live in a safe place. This is my pillow.
Fight or flight.
Room, and I think when these things can come to the wall, what the heck now what do I do? And I can tell you that what I saw, it wasn't like Casper, tra la 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 la, there was some kind of angelic vision of these angels with the church. I mean, it was just horrific, just frightening. And I always had hoped when I was younger that the afterlife would be purely clouds and harps and wings. I had no thing to gauge it with. There was Jesus on this end and Casper, and nothing would go between. And to be confronted away from home, like you said, in this small little college room by this possibility was frightening. I didn't tell my parents right away. I waited a couple months to tell them. I wanted to solve it on my own. My uncle went to Vietnam, got shot, survived. My grandpa got malaria in the Philippines fighting World War II, and he survived. I can't go home saying, I'm hearing noises. But it got to the point where, it's so devastating, where the physical attacks were happening, that I had to tell my parents what was going on. I was ashamed by that. But at the same time, I was wise enough, even at the age of 19, to know that family matters. And my father did take the trip up there to make sure I was okay. And let me tell you something. Nothing feels better than if your dad put stock in you and say, listen, let me drop what I'm doing and come help you out. Boy, I'll tell you, words are nice, but to have him drop everything he did and make that 5-hour trip in 4 hours, that's my dad. Love him.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to have that. It's like when people will tell me, or I'll relate a story about somebody who's reached out for help, and they will say, that doesn't sound believable. And I'm like, they called the police at 2:00 in the morning because they thought the rational thing, there's an intruder in the house. They weren't going, oh, it must be a ghost. Right. It's like, no, Edna, get the gun. There's
someone's in here. Right.
I mean, it's a rational reaction to something like that. And then when no one's there, you start running out of rationality a little bit. So there are better ways to get attention other than to call the local police and say that I think I have, a ghost in the house. It's like,
yeah, and it was so weird for me. One of the things I struggled with immensely was the fact that I didn't want to see these things, and I was seeing them. Others wanted to see and couldn't. That was such an odd dynamic. Like, in what world is that even remotely practical or helpful? I didn't. They could see. Some people just can see the ghost. I could point and say, "Oh yeah, that thing is moving by itself," or the lights are flat. They could see the effects of the ghost, but sometimes they couldn't see the actual ghost. Some did, but some just could not physically see what I saw. But they could verify the effects of this thing on the room. So again, maybe it's like drawing. You can draw well, you can't draw well. You can sing. I don't know. Maybe there's just a predisposition that we have in our DNA that affects that in some way.
Yeah, I believe that.
Right.
We got about 7 minutes left, and
I don't believe it.
I know. And we got 3 questions left also, Ken. Let's get to those, see if we can't fire them off. Speed round.
Sure. Again, from Bill, who's yelling at you. Has Chris ever considered an online course?
I'll go back to iPhone 7. I have no idea how to do that. If someone wants to help me do something like that down the road, I'll definitely consider it. I can get my email. It's not a Yahoo account, so that's the answer on that one. I'll consider anything if it helps people, and it's fun to do. It's just I don't have the technology to know how to do that.
What were you doing during the pandemic? Was there any of that? Remote learning?
There was. My TA basically ran the show, and I would hold court and talk about things in history. So I'm Moya Stewart. God love you.
Ken, I think what we should do is just give Chris Tuesday nights here on Dead Air Full Spectrum and let him just do a course right here on the show.
I think so. We'll set him up. We have the technology.
Well, it's a school night, maybe Saturday night, because that's a school night, Tuesday night.
Have him do it on bath night.
Yes, so good.
Ron from Minnesota wants to know, Chris, what do you think of our internal energy? Spirit, is it eternal? Okay, it's one of those questions.
I think that probably yes. I know that energy is not destroyed. It just, reforms and reshapes and restructures itself. So I guess scientifically it is a possibility. What I saw at college leads me to believe, this is my own personal viewpoint, that there is a soul or energy that does survive the physical form, that soul can still maintain some characteristics of that physical being in terms of physicality and also personality and memory. So I'm not a theologian and I'm not a scientist, but I do believe the answer from my experience is strongly affirmative, yes.
Okay, and final question, Heidi Ruziska, very nice Czechoslovakian
Italian,
young lady,
yeah,
wants to know,
Italian, whatever, yeah.
yeah, are there apps that are good or legit for ghost hunting? Very few.
Yeah, I mean,
Like you don't want ghost radars.
yeah, I mean, you can experiment and play with it. Again, FEPO, for entertainment purposes only. Just, if you're going to go out there and mess around with these, but it shouldn't be the foundation of your investigation by no means. Have fun with it. Again, same. You're getting the radar, like Ghost Radar, and it's showing, to the left of you, the 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock position. Take out your camera, start snapping, see if you get anything in that area. Then run out your recorder, compound your evidence off of that. But it's a neat thing that if it's going to get you engaged and started, sure, go for it. But again, don't base everything upon these gadgets by no means.
Yeah, there are things, voice boxes that you can, if that's your thing, that you can use to eliminate the white noise where it's just syllables coming out of it. So you're not listening to the,
Heidi, I'm going to say, Heidi, I'm going to send you my address so you can get me some pierogies. I want those pierogies more than anything. I love pierogies.
Send them the pierogies. You own them.
I'm sorry, Ken, I interrupted.
No, I pierogies. It's always time for pierogies. So there is that kind of app. The recorder on your phone is fine, but when you start getting into these apps that detect things and so forth, talking about integrated circuits, there are so many things going on in the phone that overlap. You have to allow them to use your camera. You have to allow them to use your microphone. You have to allow them your location and things like that. So some of those, they're like any other app. They're used to send you third-party cookies and things like that, with advertisements and all the rest of that. So I would say that's probably the number one reason not to, trust too many of those ghost apps because,
Well, keep in mind
you are.
Yeah, keep in mind they're probably going on a lot less in his iPhone 7. More cobwebs going on than anything in that thing.
Guilty as charged.
Your thoughts, Chris? Gadgets.
I don't use gadgets. I never have. I had a K2 meter once, and I left it in my drawer, and the battery died, so I gave it to somebody else. I've never used technology for anything. But people around me love it, and they love it, and they can let me know what they're experiencing, and I can sit in the chair and say, "Cool."
Just about 5 minutes left. Now we've kind of went around your story, told people where they can get it. And is there any other location if people want to get books, even particularly those books that you can autograph? Is there any way they can reach out to you, Chris?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm on Facebook. There's the personal page, and then there's the professional page. They're both my name, Chris DiCesare, DiCesare. And I'll always take anyone's friend requests and talk to you and things like that. There are a bunch of books out there. One written by Tim Shaw is very good through Seed Adventures. That's seedadventures.com. There's a C21 Haunting book, but in 3 months, this comes out. This is the one that I've been spending 9 years on. This is not the case study. This is actually my memoir. It's through Seed Adventures. And so this will be out in August. It's proofread. I had a gentleman from the New York Times line it for me, so I know the spelling is all good. So that'll be out there in August when they start doing the advertising for the documentary.
And remember, you can catch it on Netflix.
Yes, or something like that. Exactly.
Or something.
Listen, the team that I'm working with are so professional They're so accomplished. They're so lauded. I feel honored. They came to my home to say hello just to meet my family and stuff, which is a very nice thing from London.
Oh,
And
sweet.
I have a friend living here temporarily while his house is being fixed up, and they drank his almond milk, and he goes, "Oh my God, that producer drank my almond milk." So it's really funny how things, work in that capacity. But I watched their programming. I just love it. I'm honored that they find our experience worth creating. I think you're going to like it. It's not about bells and whistles. It's about psychological drama. It'll be one of the scariest things you're going to see. But more of an Alfred Hitchcock kind of mental horror as opposed to blood and gore flying around. It's not done that way. In terms of me going to events, I'm doing almost none. I'm taking a break. I had to lose my weight and prepare for all this filming we're doing right now. I am doing one event at the end of August. It's through Legit Paranormal and Mike King, and it's Block Island Paranormal Tours. I'll be at the Block Island, supposedly a haunted cool place, and in August, it's going to be 25, 26, 27. That's the one thing that I'm going to be doing because they greased my palm with hamburgers. So I think it's a really cool thing. And then starting September, I'm going to be able to start booking myself up places because people will then know what this is. I'll be able to help draw crowds, not just chase them away. So,
So like when we have Paracon, you're back in the game.
I think as soon as they announce this show, I can then start doing those things again. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Good
All right.
to
So that's
know.
how that's going to work. It's just I can do two things at once between the scripting aspect, the interview aspect, the filming aspect. They're allowing me to. They're blessing me to be involved in all parts of this process. I've been working with them for almost a year and a half now on the backstory what is going on, and their dedication to detail is flawless. So otherwise I wouldn't do it. And in fact, when they first reached out to me about this opportunity, the woman was very nice. Her name was Kelly. And I said to her, and I meant it, because you're nice to me, I'm saying yes. And she was. And because above all things, respect is what I need and what I try to give out. And I will not ruin my reputation or tread on my name for the almighty dollar. I just won't do it. I don't need to at this stage in my career, So look, as paranormal investigators, what we have is our word. Evidence can be debated.
Yes.
Activity things. But if we're honest and respect people, that's, I think, how the community grows, because you work together because you want to, not because you have to. So
it's been well over a decade since the last visit to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and the rapport I still have with them was all established by just trust and being, an honest individual. That's what they appreciated more than anything else, and that's same thing for the people I know in St. Augustine. It rings true, absolutely true. So after this comes out and, we're done with the paranormal season, starts getting cold up north again, you'll come back on and talk to us about it more?
Anytime. I love you guys. Come on. Yes.
Oh, shucks.
Capitals. Yes.
Chris DiCesare, thank you for joining us for the Unplugged tonight. And thank all of you in the chat for joining us. Fantastic questions and comments as well. Those of you first timers, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the reminder bell and the thumbs up tonight. Also click that thumbs up. I see only 5 of you clicked, so massively click on there before you head on out. But we thank you guys for joining us. Chris, don't hang up just yet. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week the same time. Until then, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Good night.